The rain hammered my workshop windows like bullets, each drop a reminder that even in coastal Maine, storms could come from anywhere. I was adjusting the gimbal on my newest drone when Zara's voice drifted from the kitchen, honey-sweet and practiced. "It's just a wellness retreat, Aiden. 3 days in Vermont with the girls. You know how stressed I've been with the Meridian campaign." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I didn't look up from the delicate machinery. Zara Meller, my wife of 4 years, had perfected the art of the casual lie. As a brand partnerships manager for one of Portland's hottest marketing firms, she spun stories for a living. The problem was, she'd started treating our marriage like another client account. "Which girls?" I asked, threading a microcable through the drone's chassis. "Lyra, obviously, and some of her gallery friends. You don't know them." Lyra Ventrix, Zara's closest friend since college, a gallery curator with sharp cheekbones and sharper ambitions. I'd never trusted her smile, too calculated, like she was always appraising everything for potential resale value. "Sounds expensive," I said. "The firm's covering it, team building." Zara appeared in the doorway, designer luggage in hand. She looked stunning as always, auburn hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless despite the early hour. At 33, she still turned heads everywhere we went. "I'll be back Sunday night." I finally looked up. "Drive safe." She kissed my forehead, a perfunctory gesture that felt more like stamping a document. "Love you." The door closed behind her with a soft click that somehow echoed through the entire house. I returned to my drone, but my mind wandered. Zara's wellness trips had become frequent lately, monthly escapes that always seemed to coincide with her most successful campaigns. Success, she claimed, required balance. I'd stopped questioning it months ago, mostly because I'd grown tired of her explanations. My phone buzzed. A notification from DroneShare, the app that managed my commercial photography accounts. Zara's personal profile, linked to mine for insurance purposes, showed a location ping from 2 hours ago. Not Vermont. Boston. "Wellness, my ass," I muttered to the empty room. I could have called her out immediately, could have driven to Boston and made a scene. But Aiden Drayven didn't make scenes. I documented them. 35 years of life had taught me that patience and precision beat passion every time. Instead, I opened my laptop and started tracking. The beauty of modern technology is that everyone leaves digital breadcrumbs. Zara's social media accounts were set to private, but her location services were still synced to my devices. Her credit card, our joint account, showed charges at the Meridian Hotel in downtown Boston, expensive dinners, room service for 2. My phone rang around noon. Unknown number. "Aiden?" Zara's voice, slightly breathless. "My phone stopped and I'm using Lyra's. Just wanted to check in." "How's Vermont?" "Beautiful. So peaceful. The mountains are—" A man's laugh in the background, quickly muffled. "Sorry, the girls are being loud. I should go." "Enjoy your wellness," I said. The line went silent. I sat back in my chair, staring at the rain streaking down the windows. 4 years of marriage, and it had come to this. My wife calling from her lover's phone, thinking I was too stupid to notice. But I wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger was wasteful. What I felt was something colder, more useful. Clarity. I spent the afternoon editing drone footage from a recent commercial shoot, sweeping shots of Portland's old port district for a tourism campaign. The work was meditative, requiring the same precision that had made me successful. Every frame mattered. Every angle told a story. By evening, I had a plan. Friday morning brought more rain and a text from Terry Kowalski, my only real friend in this gossip-soaked town. Terry ran a small auto repair shop and had the rare quality of saying exactly what he meant. "Beer tonight? Jenny's working late again." "Can't. Zara's away and I have plans." Lucky bastard. What kind of plans? I didn't answer. Instead, I drove downtown to Sanctuary, the wine bar housed in a converted church on Exchange Street. The original stone walls and stained glass windows created an atmosphere that was equal parts reverent and sinful, perfect for Portland's arts crowd. I wasn't surprised to find Lyra Ventrix there, holding court at a corner table with 3 other women I recognized from various gallery openings. She looked up as I approached, her expression shifting from surprise to something more calculating. "Aiden, aren't you on the trip?" The words hung in the air like incense. The other women fell silent, sensing drama. "What trip?" I asked, though I already knew where this was heading. Lyra's smile was razor-sharp. "Zara's wellness retreat, in Vermont." She paused, studying my face. "With her lover." The casual brutality of it was almost admirable. No build-up, no gentle revelation, just the truth, delivered like a dagger between the ribs. "She's with her lover," Lyra continued, pulling out her phone. "Has been for months. Look." She showed me Zara's Instagram stories, the ones hidden from my account. Photos from the Meridian Hotel, dinner at an expensive steakhouse. And there he was, tall, dark-haired, handsome in that generic way that screamed, "Trust fund baby." The captions were sickeningly sweet. "Perfect evening with my perfect man," and "Some secrets are worth keeping." I stared at the screen, my face carefully neutral. The other women watched like spectators at a car accident, waiting for me to explode or collapse or do something dramatic enough to fuel weeks of gossip. Instead, I handed the phone back to Lyra. "Interesting." She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Forget her, Aiden, she's poison. Always has been." A pause, then, "Dinner with me tonight?" The invitation was bold, calculated, and perfectly timed. Lyra had always been attracted to unavailable men. It was safer than actual intimacy, but she'd also just handed me the ammunition I needed. "I'd like that," I said, loud enough for the other women to hear. Her eyes widened slightly. She hadn't expected acceptance. "Great," she said, recovering quickly. 8 o'clock? 4th Street? Perfect. I left them buzzing with excitement and walked back to my car. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained gray and threatening. I sat behind the wheel for a moment, processing what had just happened. Lyra thought she was playing me, offering comfort to the wounded husband while positioning herself as the better alternative. What she didn't realize was that she'd just become the first piece in my revenge. I pulled out my phone and took a selfie, casual, smiling, with Sanctuary's distinctive stained glass windows visible in the background. Then I posted it to Instagram with a simple caption, "Unexpected encounters. Sometimes the best conversations happen when you least expect them." I tagged Lyra and made sure the post was visible to all of Zara's professional contacts. The first shot had been fired. Dinner with Lyra was everything I'd expected. Expensive wine, intimate lighting, and carefully orchestrated seduction. She wore a black dress that hugged every curve and spoke in hushed tones about art, passion, and the tragedy of settling for less than you deserved. "Zara never appreciated you," she said over the second bottle of wine. "You're too good for her, Aiden. Too real." I nodded at appropriate moments and asked thoughtful questions about her latest gallery exhibition. But my mind was elsewhere, calculating the next moves in a game she didn't even know we were playing. After dinner, we walked along the waterfront. The rain had started again, creating halos around the streetlights. Lyra moved closer, her hand brushing mine. "I should probably get home," I said. "You could come up for coffee," she offered. "My apartment has an amazing view of the harbor." "Rain check," I said, then immediately regretted the pun. She laughed anyway. "I'll hold you to that." I drove home through empty streets, my phone buzzing with notifications. The Instagram post had generated dozens of comments and likes, including several from Zara's colleagues. By morning, half of Portland's arts community would know that Aiden Drayven had been seen having dinner with Lyra Ventrix while his wife was supposedly away on business. The house felt different when I walked in. Not empty, but liberated. I poured myself a scotch and sat in my workshop, surrounded by the tools of my trade. Drones of various sizes lined the shelves, their cameras like unblinking eyes. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Saturday morning brought sunshine and a phone call from Mags Brennan, Zara's primary rival at the marketing firm. Mags was everything Zara pretended to be, smart, ambitious, and utterly ruthless. She also hated my wife with the passion of 1,000 suns. "Heard you had dinner with Lyra last night," she said without preamble. "News travels fast. Faster when it's interesting. Want to grab coffee? I have some information you might find useful." We met at a small cafe in the Arts District, away from the usual crowd. Mags looked like she'd stepped out of a business magazine. Sharp suit, perfect makeup, predatory smile. "Your wife is screwing Damien Kessler," she said, stirring sugar into her latte. "Married tech entrepreneur, 2 kids. Wife thinks he's at business conferences. They've been using company resources to cover their tracks, booking rooms under fake client meetings, expensing romantic dinners as business development." I absorbed this information without reaction. "Why are you telling me?" "Because Zara's been stealing my clients and taking credit for my campaigns, and because Damien's company has been getting insider information about our pitches." She leaned forward. "Help me destroy them both, and I'll make sure you come out of this divorce with everything." "What do you need?" "Access to Zara's personal accounts. Her laptop, her phone, anything with her communications." I thought about this for a moment. "I can do better than that." That afternoon, I began the systematic dismantling of my wife's life. First, I changed the passwords on all our joint accounts: banking, insurance, utilities. Legal, since my name was on everything. Then I called our insurance company and removed Zara as beneficiary on my life insurance policy. Again, perfectly legal. Next, I accessed our shared cloud storage and downloaded 4 years of Zara's personal files, including her communications with Damien. The messages were explicit, detailed, and absolutely damning. They'd been planning this affair for months, using company resources and lying to both their spouses. But the real prize was buried in Zara's email drafts, a detailed plan to start their own marketing firm using stolen client lists and proprietary information from both their current employers. Industrial espionage wrapped in a love affair. I copied everything to multiple drives and sent the relevant files to Mags through an encrypted email service. By Sunday afternoon, I was ready for Zara's return. She walked through the door at 6 p.m., looking refreshed and glowing with the kind of satisfaction that comes from 3 days of guilt-free indulgence. "How was Vermont?" I asked from the kitchen, where I was preparing dinner. "Wonderful. Exactly what I needed." She dropped her bag and moved to kiss me, but I turned my head so her lips caught my cheek instead. "Everything okay?" "Fine. Quiet weekend. How's Lyra?" "Good. She said to tell you hello." The lie came so easily that I almost admired it. Almost. "That's nice of her. We had dinner Friday night." Zara froze. "What?" "I ran into her at Sanctuary. She mentioned you were away, so we grabbed dinner at 4th Street. Great conversation." I turned to face her, my expression perfectly innocent. "She didn't mention it?" The color drained from Zara's face. "No, we were busy. Lots of activities." "I'm sure. How was the Meridian Hotel, by the way?" The question hit like a physical blow. Zara's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, her mind racing to construct a plausible explanation. "I don't know what you're talking about," she finally managed. "The charge is on our credit card. Boston, not Vermont. Unless Vermont has really changed its geography recently." She straightened, shifting into damage control mode. "Okay, fine. We changed locations at the last minute. The Vermont place was overbooked." "With Damien Kessler?" The name hung between us like a loaded gun. Zara's face went through a series of expressions: shock, fear, anger, and finally resignation. "How long have you known?" she asked quietly. "Long enough." She sat down heavily at the kitchen table. "Aiden, I can explain." "Don't." I turned back to the stove, stirring the pasta sauce with deliberate calm. "I'm not interested in explanations." "What do you want?" "Nothing. You've already given me everything I need." My phone buzzed with a text from Mags. "Package delivered. Fireworks start Monday morning." I smiled at the screen, then looked back at my wife. "Dinner's ready." We ate in silence, the weight of unspoken accusations filling the room like smoke. Zara picked at her food, stealing glances at me when she thought I wasn't looking. I ate with apparent appetite, occasionally commenting on mundane topics: the weather, a new client, plans for the week. "Aiden," she said finally, "we need to talk about this." "Do we?" "I made a mistake. Several, actually." She flinched. "It's not what you think. Damien and I, we're not just... It's more than physical. We connect on a deeper level. We understand each other's ambitions." "How romantic." "Don't be sarcastic. This is serious." I set down my fork and looked at her directly for the first time since she'd returned. "You're right. It is serious, which is why I've already filed for divorce." The words hit her like a slap. "You what?" "This morning. No fault, irreconcilable differences. Clean and simple. You can't just..." "I can, and I did." I stood up, clearing my plate. "You'll be served papers tomorrow." Zara's composure finally cracked. "You bastard! You have no right..." "I have every right. You're the one who decided our marriage wasn't worth preserving. It was one mistake." 4 months isn't a mistake, Zara. It's a choice." She stared at me, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. "What about everything we built together? The house, the business connections, our life? You should have thought about that before you decided to build a new life with someone else." I left her crying at the table and went to my workshop. Through the window, I could see her car in the driveway, the BMW I'd helped her buy when she got promoted last year. Tomorrow she'd discover that the loan was in my name only, and that I'd already contacted the bank about repossession. The pieces were falling into place exactly as I'd planned. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made Portland look like a postcard. I was editing drone footage in my workshop when my phone rang. Zara's number. "Aiden, what did you do?" Her voice was tight with panic. "Good morning to you too. My credit cards were declined. The bank says our accounts are frozen." "Not frozen, transferred. To my personal account, which you're no longer authorized to access." "You can't do that." "Actually, I can. Check the fine print on our joint account agreement. Primary account holder has full discretionary control." Silence on the other end, broken only by her ragged breathing. "There's more," I continued. "Your car's being repossessed this afternoon. The loan was in my name only, and I've decided I can't afford the payments anymore." "You snake. Also, you might want to check your work email. I believe your boss received some interesting information about your extracurricular activities." The line went silent. An hour later, Terry called. "Dude, what the hell is going on? Zara just showed up at my shop crying and screaming about you ruining her life." "Where is she now?" "I told her to leave. She was scaring my customers." He paused. "Seriously, man, what happened?" "She's been cheating on me for months. I'm handling it." "By destroying her?" "By protecting myself." Terry was quiet for a moment. "Need any help?" "Actually, yeah. Can you swing by the house around 2? I need someone to witness the car pickup." "Sure thing." The repo truck arrived right on schedule, just as Zara was pulling into the driveway in an Uber. The timing was perfect, completely coincidental, of course. She stood on the sidewalk in her designer suit, watching 2 men load her BMW onto the flatbed truck. Her face was a mask of humiliation and rage. "This is harassment!" she shouted at me as I emerged from the house. "This is business," I replied calmly. I can't afford luxury car payments for someone who doesn't live here anymore. I still live here. Do you? Because according to the hotel records, you've spent more nights with Damien than with me this month. Terry whistled low. Damn, Zara, that's cold. She whirled on him. Stay out of this, Terry. Hey, I'm just here for moral support, he said, holding up his hands. Though I gotta say, if Jenny did this to me, I'd probably react worse than Aiden. The repo truck pulled away, taking the last symbol of Zara's success with it. She stood there for a moment, looking lost and vulnerable. For a split second, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered the photos on her phone, the lies, the casual cruelty of planning a future with another man while sharing my bed. You'll be hearing from my lawyer, she said finally. Good luck affording one. She stormed back to the waiting Uber, slamming the door hard enough to make the driver flinch. Terry shook his head as the car pulled away. Remind me never to cheat on Jenny. Good policy. That evening, Mags called with an update. Zara's been suspended pending investigation. Turns out using company resources for personal affairs is a fireable offense. Who knew? What about Damien? His wife found out. Apparently, she's got family money and a very good lawyer. He's looking at losing half his company in the divorce, plus potential criminal charges for the industrial espionage angle. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. There's more. Lyra's been asking around about you. I think she's planning to make a move. I wasn't surprised. Lyra had always been opportunistic, and a newly single man with a successful business would be an attractive target. Let her come, I said. The next few days passed in a blur of legal paperwork and strategic positioning. I met with my lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Wells, who specialized in high-conflict divorces. Your wife's attorney is claiming emotional distress and demanding alimony, she said, reviewing the latest filings. On what grounds? Abandonment, apparently. She's saying you locked her out of her own home and destroyed her career. I laughed. She destroyed her own career by sleeping with a client and stealing proprietary information. I just documented it. The documentation is solid. We can prove adultery, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. She won't get a penny in alimony, and she might face criminal charges. Good. Patricia studied me over her reading glasses. Aiden, I have to ask, are you sure you want to go this far? Divorce is one thing, but completely destroying someone's life. She made her choice. I'm just making sure she lives with the consequences. Fair enough, but be prepared for her to escalate. Desperate people do desperate things. She was right, of course. Zara's next move came Friday evening, when she showed up at my house with Lyra and two other women I didn't recognize. They looked like they'd been drinking. I watched from my workshop window as they stood on the front porch, Zara pounding on the door and shouting my name. When I didn't answer, she tried her key, which no longer worked since I'd changed the locks. Aiden, she screamed, I know you're in there. We need to talk. I opened the window and leaned out. There's nothing to talk about, Zara. Go home. This is my home too. Not anymore. Check your lease agreement. Oh wait, there isn't one. Your name isn't on the deed, the mortgage, or any of the utility accounts. Lyra stepped forward, swaying slightly. Don't be such a bastard, Aiden. She's trying to apologize. I don't want her apology. I want her gone. You can't just throw away 4 years of marriage, Zara shouted. I'm not throwing it away. You already did that when you decided Damien was more important than our vows. One of the other women, a blonde I recognized from various gallery events, spoke up. Maybe if you'd been a better husband, she wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. The comment hit its mark, but I kept my expression neutral. Maybe if she'd been honest about what she wanted, we could have ended this like adults. Honest? Zara laughed bitterly. You want honesty? Fine. You're boring, Aiden, predictable. Damien makes me feel alive in ways you never could. Then you should be thanking me for setting you free. By destroying my career? By humiliating me in front of everyone I know? By revealing who you really are? The words hung in the air like a challenge. Zara's face went through a series of emotions before settling on pure hatred. "You think you're so smart," she said, "but you have no idea what's coming." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." She turned and stalked back to Lyra's car, her entourage following. I watched them drive away, noting the license plate number and the time. If Zara wanted to escalate, I'd be ready. The next morning brought the first sign of her retaliation. I woke to find my car keyed, the word "asshole" scratched deep into the paint on both sides. Security cameras would have been useful, but I'd never felt the need to install them in our quiet neighborhood. I called the police and filed a report, though I knew nothing would come of it. Vandalism was nearly impossible to prove without witnesses or video evidence. Officer Rourke, a gruff veteran with tired eyes, took my statement with professional detachment. "Any idea who might have done this?" "My soon-to-be ex-wife, probably. We're going through a difficult divorce." He nodded knowingly. "Happens more than you'd think. You got somewhere else you can park? This kind of thing usually escalates before it gets better." "I'll figure something out." After he left, I called my insurance company and arranged for repairs. Then I drove to an electronics store and bought a complete security camera system. If Zara wanted to play games, I'd make sure to document every move. The installation took most of the day, but by evening, I had full coverage of the house and driveway. Motion sensors, night vision, cloud storage, everything I needed to catch her in the act. I didn't have to wait long. Sunday night, around 2 a.m., the motion alerts started pinging my phone. I pulled up the camera feed and watched as Zara and two male companions crept across my lawn carrying cans of spray paint. I could have called the police immediately, but that would have spoiled the fun. Instead, I waited until they'd finished their artistic endeavor, cheater and liar, in bright red paint across my garage door, before triggering the motion-activated floodlights. The sudden illumination caught them like deer in headlights. One of the men, I recognized him as Damian Kessler from the photos, dropped his paint can and ran. The other man, shorter and stockier, stood his ground for a moment before common sense prevailed. Zara just stood there, paint can in hand, staring directly into the camera with defiant eyes. I opened the window and called down to her. "Smile, honey. You're on candid camera." "Screw you, Aiden. Already got that on audio, too. The police should find this very interesting." She threw the paint can at the house, leaving a red splatter across the white siding, then ran after her companions. I saved the footage to multiple locations and called Officer Rourke. He arrived 20 minutes later, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Well, this is pretty clear-cut," he said after reviewing the video. "Vandalism, trespassing, destruction of property. You want to press charges?" "Absolutely. Fair warning, this is going to get messy. Domestic situations always do." "It's already messy. Now it's just documented." The arrest warrant was issued Monday morning. By Tuesday, Zara was in custody, and by Wednesday, the story was all over town. Portland's arts community thrived on gossip, and a marketing executive arrested for vandalizing her ex-husband's house was prime material. Lyra called me Thursday afternoon, her voice carefully controlled. "This has gone far enough, Aiden." "Has it?" "Zara made mistakes, but she doesn't deserve this. You're destroying her life." "She destroyed her own life. I'm just refusing to go down with the ship." "What do you want? Money? An apology? What will it take to make this stop?" "Nothing. There's nothing she can offer that I want." "What about what I can offer?" The suggestion hung between us like a loaded gun. Lyra was beautiful, connected, and desperate enough to trade favors for her friend's freedom. Under different circumstances, I might have been tempted. "I'm not interested, Lyra. You were interested Friday night. Friday night was before I knew you were helping her vandalize my property. Silence on the other end. Then, you're making a mistake. Zara has friends, connections. This isn't over. You're right. It's not over, but it's about to be. I hung up and immediately called Mags. Time for the final act. What do you need? Access to the gallery's event space and a guest list for everyone in Zara's professional circle. What are you planning? A gallery opening, featuring the private collection of Zara Meller. Friday evening, Portland's arts elite gathered at Lyra's gallery for what they believed was a surprise exhibition. The invitation had been vague but intriguing. An intimate look at the private passions of Portland's most dynamic power couple. I arrived fashionably late, dressed in my best suit and carrying a tablet loaded with 4 months of documentation. Zara was there, out on bail, and desperate to control the narrative. Damien stood beside her, looking like a man facing his own execution. Lyra had tried to cancel the event when she realized what I was planning, but it was too late. The invitations were sent, the wine was poured, and Portland's gossip machine was already in full swing. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, tapping a wine glass to get everyone's attention, "thank you for coming tonight. I know you were expecting an art exhibition, but instead, I'd like to share something much more personal." I connected my tablet to the gallery's projection system and smiled at the crowd of familiar faces, Zara's colleagues, clients, and competitors, all gathered in one place. 4 months ago, my wife Zara began an affair with Damien Kessler. What started as simple adultery evolved into something much more interesting: industrial espionage, fraud, and conspiracy to commit theft of intellectual property. The first image appeared on the wall, a text message from Zara to Damien discussing stolen client lists. Gasps echoed through the gallery. "But tonight isn't about business ethics," I continued, advancing to the next slide. "It's about personal integrity." More messages flashed across the screen. Explicit photos, detailed plans for their future together, cruel jokes about my naivety. The crowd watched in fascination and horror as 4 months of deception played out in high definition. Zara tried to rush the projector, but Mags and 2 security guards blocked her path. "Turn it off!" she screamed. "This is private." "Privacy is a privilege you forfeited when you decided to document your crimes," I replied calmly. The final slide was the most damaging, a detailed business plan for their new company, complete with stolen client information and proprietary strategies from both their employers. It was enough evidence to destroy both their careers and possibly land them in prison. "This concludes tonight's exhibition," I announced as the lights came up. "I hope you found it illuminating." The silence that followed was deafening. Then the whispers started, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Phones appeared, capturing Zara's humiliated face and Damien's panicked expression. "You bastard!" Zara whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You absolute bastard!" "No," I replied, packing up my tablet. "I'm just a man who refuses to be made a fool of twice." Damien finally found his voice. "This is harassment, defamation." "This is truth. Every message, every photo, every document came from your own devices. I didn't create this evidence. I just preserved it." The crowd began to disperse, already reaching for their phones to spread the news. By morning, everyone in Portland would know exactly what kind of people Zara Meller and Damien Kessler really were. Lyra approached me as I headed for the exit. "Are you satisfied now?" "Actually, yes. For the first time in months, I feel completely satisfied. They'll never work in this town again." "That's not my problem." She studied my face, looking for some sign of remorse or regret. "What happened to you, Aiden? You used to be kind." "I used to be naive. There's a difference." I walked out into the cool night air, leaving behind the wreckage of my marriage and my wife's reputation. The rain had started again, washing the streets clean and promising a fresh start. My phone buzzed with a text from Terry. "Saw the news online. Holy shit, dude. Remind me never to piss you off." I smiled and typed back, "Too late. You already know where I live." The divorce was finalized 3 weeks later. Zara got nothing. No alimony, no property, no shared assets. She'd been fired from her job and blacklisted from every major marketing firm in Maine. Damien faced similar consequences, plus a criminal investigation for corporate espionage. Lyra's gallery closed after several major donors withdrew their support. Apparently, being associated with industrial espionage was bad for business. I kept the house, the business, and my dignity. More importantly, I kept my reputation intact, while theirs crumbled to dust. 6 months later, I ran into Zara at a coffee shop in the Old Port. She looked older, tired, wearing clothes I didn't recognize. She was working as a server, taking orders from the same people who used to seek her professional advice. Our eyes met across the crowded cafe. For a moment, I saw a flash of the woman I'd once loved, vulnerable, human, broken by her own choices. Then she looked away, and the moment passed. I ordered my coffee from someone else and left without speaking to her. There was nothing left to say. She'd made her choices, and I'd made mine. The gallery doors had slammed shut on her old life, and there was no sanctuary for the faithless, not in this town, and not on my watch. Justice, I'd learned, wasn't about forgiveness or moving on. Sometimes it was simply about making sure the consequences matched the crime. Zara had gambled with our marriage and lost everything. I'd made sure she understood exactly what that loss meant. No sanctuary for the faithless. Not now. Not ever.